I'm going to get down off the stage and do a bit of a walkabout. Pleased to be here to give you the annual update on LawPRO. At this time of year, we have the financials for the prior year, so I'm going to talk about those. Going to talk about the claims that we're seeing, give a little plug to the Law Society's Member Assistance Program, touch on our excess insurance program, Practice Pro, and talk about blockchain, kind of as give a blockchain primer as a follow-up to some of the questions that came up yesterday. So first of all, what did we see in 2018 in claims? About 2,700 open claims files, bringing us up to newly reported claims files, bring us up to over 4,000 open claim files at this time. We are seeing generally over time an increase in the newly reported claims, as well as an increase in our overall open claims files. That does reflect in large part the larger numbers of lawyers in private practice. Our records show that over about the last 20 years, 2 to 3% on average growth in the number of lawyers in private practice each year. We are seeing more complex claims. They're not as easy to deal with as they used to be, and the count is now getting up to the point where it was back in 1997 when we were still cleaning up from the real estate crisis. So it's taken us a long time to get back up to that point. The good news is when we look at the overall number of claims per 1,000 lawyers, so the claims rate, while there is a bit of up and down on that graph, it's pretty steady around just over 100 claims per 1,000 lawyers per year. So that's good news. The claims rate is steady. It would be better if it's going down, but at least it isn't going up. Average cost of claim right now is about $38,000, and you can see that the costs on average kind of over those three different time periods are going up as well. Again, more complex claims, I think part of the driver there. The good news is, while the costs are going up, the kind of count has remained steady, and thanks to decent investment returns and kind of controlling our costs, I think some claims prevention as well. We've managed to keep the premium flat. We're just starting now the discussions on setting the premium for next year. Claims by area of practice. You've all seen this before, a variation of it. Real estate and litigation are still the #1 area of claims for us. Thankfully, as you'll see in a second, litigation claims have gone back down to what they were prior to the admin dismissal difficulties we had. Wills and estates, corporate and family are the other bigger areas. So you can see there on the blue line, that big hump in the middle, that's the admin dismissals claim bump up. We saw probably $15 to $18 million we had to spend sorting that out, an extra 200 or so claims per year over that time period. Very pleased to say that the changes in the rules, the new kind of the dismissal of all the old claims and the ongoing moving forward window seems to have reduced the claims back to the prior level, if not below the prior level. So that was an expensive detour, but we seem to have come through it there. Again, we encourage anyone that is handling litigation matters, that 5-year automatic dismissal. The courts around the province are now doing that. That means that 5 years after a claim is initiated, if it's not set down for trial, it's dismissed without notice. The other interesting two trends there are the green and the darker blue line, generally trending up over time, both wills and family law. The family law count is roughly proportional to the increase in numbers of lawyers. The wills and estates one is perhaps slightly larger than that. That's an area we're watching as we come in on the wealth transfer of the baby boomers. We fully accept to see more claims there. We are seeing more will challenge claims come up, and important there that if there's any allegation or suggestion that a will be challenged, do-it-yourself repairs, turning over your files, absolutely not what should happen. Give us a shout, we'll talk to you, we'll walk through. The files should not be produced without a court order. If there's going to be an examination for discovery on on what happened during the will file, we want to talk to folks. We will send up somebody to hold your hand through that process, and we may, depending on the circumstances, even handle that as a repair, so there wouldn't be any deductible, et cetera, on that. So something to watch out for there. Loads of information on the types of claims we see in 10 different bigger areas of law, as well as advice on the steps that can be taken to avoid claims in those areas of law in our claims fact sheets, which are available on our website. So if you want to learn a little bit more about a particular area of law, I encourage you to take a look at those. Claims by type of error. Again, you've seen this graph many times before, but there's a significant change this time. Communication, poor communication, miscommunication, no communication continues to be the #1 error that we see, but the new one in second place now is something that we call inadequate investigation or discovery of fact. This has doubled over my time at LawPRO from 2001 until now. What is happening here? Not entirely sure, but fairly suspicious that this is kind of the new way lawyers and their clients have been accustomed to doing things. We all get quick texts, quick messages, quick updates, tweets, quick question, quick answer so client asks a quick question, lawyer gives a quick answer, the full context isn't understood, okay? Client wants to keep the fees down, doesn't want time spent digging, figuring out the different options. So part of that is people in a rush, lawyers aren't getting all the details they need to give clients advice. So that's a bit of a concern, and that is happening across the base in just about every single area of law. So something to watch for. Time management continues to be the number 3 most common error, so that's missing deadlines or improper mistakes using a tickler system and procrastination. Then nor apply the law is up slightly in the last couple of years relative to what it's been before, but it's still only 15%. Some good news there, frauds on the cost side are down a bit for us, but we're still seeing fraud claims. I'm going to talk more about those further on. Here's another one you've seen before with a few significant changes, and it's a bit complex, but there's a lot of information there. Let me try to explain what it shows. So there you have, by rank, the types of errors by firm size. So vertical bars, the first one on the left is solos, then firms 2 to 5, 6 to 10, 75 or larger, okay? Just for point of perspective, that first bar, the solos, that's 1/3 of the 27,000 lawyers that we insure. The next 2 bars, 2 to 5 and 6 to 10, are another 1/3 of the lawyers that we insure, and then moving on up the line. Now, when I first started showing this graph to you 15 or so years ago, those different lines lined up perfectly. The communication errors were #1 error across the board, regardless of firm size. Next up, the time management. Next up, the inadequate investigation. Then law, which is the green error. Interesting thing that's happened there, for that kind of 11 to 24 firm size, the time management claim has jumped up to the most common claim, and I think that's a symptom of the big lump we had with the admin dismissals over the past several years. So a bit of a change there. And then at the solos and firms 2 to 5, the inadequate investigation or discovery of fact error has popped up to #2, which is kind of interesting. Is that the area where that quick advice, the quick answer with not spending time is happening more so? I think that might be the case. The other key lesson here is, yes, contrary to sometimes common perceptions, big firms have claims as well, and people and systems break down in the same way regardless of the size of firm. That gives you the same proportion of errors across the firm base for all the different firm types. It is true that at the big firm level, fewer of their claims, a smaller proportion of their claims ultimately involve an indemnity payment, but when they win a prize, it tends to be a larger prize, so actually the average cost across the different firm sizes is fairly similar. Very proud of the team at LawPRO and the work we do in handling claims. I think by any measure a pretty enviable record, winning 6 out of 7 of the matters that went to trial, for which we have a decision rendered, successful on 23 of 29 summary judgment motions, and of 7 of the 10 appeals we took on summary judgment motions. So we take a principled approach to claims. If it's clear the lawyer made a mistake, we will try to repair it and make a reasonable settlement with a client to set them right. If it's a claim that's based largely because the client was unhappy with the result or the fees or something like that, we go to the wall on those, and that lets us control and shape the law of solicitor's negligence here in Ontario. Wanted to highlight the different numbers of lawyers that take advantage of some of the different fee discounts we have, or premium discounts. So loads of lawyers pay the base premium, the $29.50, but there's large groups that take advantage of one of the different discounts. So the new lawyer discount, 40, 30, 20, sorry, 50, 40, 30, 20% over their first 4 years in practice. You can see there's about 5,300 lawyers there. About 2,100 lawyers are taking a benefit of the part-time discount, so that's a 50% reduction in the premium, provided you're below 750 billable hours and $95,000 in gross billings per year. Criminal lawyers and immigration lawyers that practice exclusively in one or both of those two areas also get a 50% discount. That's about 1,700. The solos that take up innocent party coverage, there's about 3,700 of those. Those that buy up the runoff coverage, 1,400 there, and right now we have about 8,500 lawyers who have the real estate practice coverage option. That's what we call the REPCO coverage, that extra coverage you need to close real estate deals, to be on Terranet, et cetera. Resolution of claims at LawPRO, we continue to see roughly the same proportion we've seen for a long, long time. About 45% of our claims, no cost whatsoever. Those are the fee disputes and the unhappy clients. Another 40% where we incur defense costs only. That is the cost of hiring outside counsel for litigation. Only about 14% of the claims we handle ultimately involve an indemnity payment. That is some finding that the lawyer was negligent and the client suffered some kind of damages. So lots of work done there successfully defending lawyers. Very, very quickly, the 2018 financials. We had just over $100 million in premiums come in last year. Our general expenses were 22%. That's the costs of running the company. Claims costs were about $81 million, and there's a bit of accounting magic happening there. That number is on the books down a little bit relative. The hard dollars there are up around $90 million. The reduction reflects some modeling changes and favorable development in prior years. So in round numbers, we're seeing $90 million in hard claims coming in each year at this point in time. Net investment income, a shade under $20 million. Again, on the reserves we're holding to pay out those 4,000 open claims files, approximately $475 million. We do get some returns on that, and we just put those profits back into the expenses. They help keep premiums down going forward. That's kind of a very quick overview of some very detailed financial statements that are in our annual report. Encourage you to take a look at it if you would like more detail there. Wanted to highlight one thing that's very important to us. We pay roughly 45% of the cost of running the Law Society's member assistance program. Our experience is that frequently lawyers with a claim, there's something else going on there, personal issue, financial issue, health, addiction issue. And it's almost a guarantee that lawyers with multiple claims have something going on. And we don't always know that. Sometimes we find it out later on. So we're a huge booster of the member assistance program. Kind of our feeling is hopefully if people can get help earlier before things go off the rails significantly, that can help reduce claims. If you're not familiar, and we're very pleased to see member usage. So this is the percentage of lawyers and judges and students and everybody who's able to use the member assistance plan, using it on an annual basis. So we're up to 6%, so that's fantastic. That's a number that's higher than typically is seen in other similar plans, so we're definitely headed in the right direction there. They are about to launch HomeWeb, which is a new website, much easier access to their existing resources, and they're adding some kind of new self-assessment tools and resources. If you're not familiar with what is there, please take time to look at it. There are great, really great resources, and by all means, if you see someone who's struggling, step in, ask some questions, offer to help, offer the resources that are there to help them. I wanted to do a little bragging about our excess program. It's been out there now for 20 years. And why do we have an excess program? Because on an annual basis, in round numbers, we see slightly fewer than 10 claims go over that $1 million limit on the mandatory LawPRO program. On an annual basis, we would see 275 or so claims go over 100,000. Back about 20 years ago, when it was very difficult for solo and small firms to get excess insurance, we launched an excess program. We're very pleased with how it's gone. It offers up to $9 million above that mandatory $1 million limit, and one huge difference between the mandatory program and the excess program. On the excess program, the firm is the named insured, not the lawyer, which is the case on the mandatory program. As you can see, 1,500 firms, 38 lawyers, it's solos and smalls that have taken up this program for us. We have an amazing retention rate of 98%. Once people come in and see the program and participate in it, they stay with us, which is a compliment. And right now, we have about 15% of firms that are under 50 lawyers in that program. Some great benefits to it. Gives you protection against a large claim. There's no gaps in coverage. The LawPRO mandatory program and our excess program are seamless. We make sure, whether it's innocent party coverage or all of the other sublimits, that there's full coverage there. So that's a definite benefit. If you have excess from somebody else, you need to do a careful comparison to make sure that there's no gaps. One notice of claim to us puts you on notice for both the primary and the excess program if you have an excess program with us. Very competitive pricing because you're getting it from us. There's no broker's commission involved. That shaves at least 15% off the cost of the premium there. Wanted to also talk about Practice Pro, and kind of in a similar fashion to the Law Society, we've worked very hard over the years to put a lot of resources available, and that's just a selection of the 68 LawPRO magazines we've published over the years. Lots of helpful content there. We've done over 900 presentations, probably closer to 1,000. We've had about 480,000 people at 2,800 different programs that were approved for the risk management credit. So programs actually that we know and have directed have claims prevention advice in them. Great success there. Loads of fraud warnings posted on our blog, about 700 visitors a day, and we know this is helping lawyers avoid claims, avoid frauds from happening, and not just in Ontario but elsewhere, but that's the magic. We're getting reports from everywhere because fraud is very organized, and they're bombing, emailing lawyers everywhere. And good to get that. 1,200 books borrowed from our lending library. If you're not familiar with it, online, you can review copies of a list of the books that are there. They're available for free loan to Ontario lawyers. All sorts of great books on different topics. We'll courier them out to you at our expense. You have them for 3 weeks and send them back to us at your expense. Loads of checklists and other materials and that on the website as well. If you're not familiar with them, encourage you to take a look. There is out on the desk outside a summary listing of some of our best resources that I commend to you. We also have a new lawyers resource page that has some similar resources to that the Law Society has, and our new very popular first-time guide to going to court, which is being downloaded loads and loads. The lesson here is sometimes in life the ball is going to bounce in the direction you don't expect it, and that's why it's great to have insurance standing behind you. But loads of the claims we handle are easily preventable with better client communication, with better practice management. Encourage everybody to be proactive. You know, the fence at the top of the hill is better than the ambulance at the bottom of the hill. Claims can be avoided. Cyber claims. Wanted to get an update on this because the cyber hackers continue to evolve and get better at what they are doing. First of all, one of the frauds that we're seeing more lawyers fall for these days are what's called kind of the compromised email. So what happens here is hackers get into typically the client's email system, sometimes the lawyer's system, or sometimes a third-party system, and what they do is they monitor the conversation going back and forth. And on the day that the deal is closing, they will either send an email from the client's compromised system pretending to be the client to the lawyer, directing the lawyer to send the money somewhere else, or they will send a spoofed email address. So it'll be an email address that will kind of look like it's the client, but it's not the client, and that way the conversation happens back and forth, not within the client's email. If they're using the client's email, they'll send a message, they go in and they delete it from the sent folder. But in these cases, we're seeing lawyers or their staff people get instructions to send the money elsewhere, and they're following through. So, you know, be aware of that. Last-minute instructions to change where the money is going on a real estate deal, on a commercial deal, or otherwise should be a major red flag, and you should follow up and do some kind of double check with a client through a different communication channel to prevent that from happening. The other one that we're seeing, which is dastardly and devious and deadly simple, very easy to file a Form 1 and change the officers and directors of a corporation in Ontario. And what they will do is they go out and they look for a piece of property that has no mortgage on it. They will file a Form 1 making the fraudsters the current officers and directors, and then they will come in using that property that's not otherwise encumbered to set up a scam where somebody makes a loan advancement against the property, and good money there goes out to the fraudster, and by the time it's discovered, they're long gone. So be aware of this. If you are doing a deal with some of these different criteria, so mortgage-free property, it's owned by a numbered company, there's been a very recent change of officers and directors. Typically, there's a mortgage broker involved here because that kind of can help cover up, and they're in cahoots with the other fraudsters. So there'll be multiple people here. The commission will appear to be relatively high. The mortgage broker could be somebody who's legitimate as well, and they really want to get the deal closed because they're getting a higher fee. And typically the borrowers, officers, directors that the lawyer's dealing with will be unknown to the lawyer. So a bunch of red flags. If this happens, beware and be careful of that. Some other examples of email being the most dangerous tool in your office. I'm sure many of you receive this kind of a generic invoice that comes into the firm, and I know LawPRO's a slightly larger organization than many of your firms, but sometimes it's darn hard to tell, is this a real or legitimate invoice? And the trick here is if you pick on the link, you may be downloading some kind of malware. So be aware of this, make your staff aware to be skeptical of these kinds of things. This is the typical something urgent has happened to your account, please log in, and in this case, give your credit card information. Okay, don't want to do that. The other one, there's an IT issue, it's urgent, please log in and fix it. And then this is one that we're seeing more often, just a simple request. You know, are you there? Can you help right now? And here's a very real instance from yesterday, okay? At 10 to 1, Mike, supposedly, sends a message to Sam, are you free at the moment? They're sitting like a table apart here, all right? And this is the, Sam replied, and this is then Mike comes back, and this is the Apple iTunes scam. Please get some iTunes cards and phone me with the numbers, okay? Because if you have the iTunes numbers, you can go out and spend them, okay, online. Now, you would think people wouldn't fall for this, but people fall for this. And they will kind of look for a circumstance. In this case, it's an iTunes scam. In other cases, we've seen exactly that kind of question. I think I highlighted it last year, where if you reply, it's, oh, can you help me make a payment on one of the files? So it'll be between supposedly two lawyers of the firm. So again, beware of it. And here's another one, and I took this one a little bit personally because our HR department received a request to change the direct deposit information on my paycheck, okay? Now, lots of red flags here. The name was right. The email address behind the name, which will be hidden on your email systems, was not. And, you know, language not the best through the course of, and, you know, why am I sending my HR person signing it Daniel E? Lots of red flags there, okay? Tell your staff, talk to your staff. Something like this, you know, they may just follow through with something like this because they think they're being helpful. And they should be asking, they should be double checking to make sure they're not falling for it. So our fraud fact sheets are out there to help you and your staff be familiar with these frauds, recognize the red flags, and avoid them. And there are some out on the table outside. Encourage you to grab a copy, take it home. And again, you may not be tricked at these because you've seen the presentation 200 or 300 times. Your staff has never done it. Make sure they're aware. They're a weaker link in your organization. I'm very pleased to say we've worked together with OGen on an extension to our Foot in the Door project. We're now partnering with them to set up where real estate lawyers can go out to a class and run the class through a sample real estate deal or the rental of a property. So that in the lesson plan and all that stuff that teachers need to bring a lecture in and have a lesson in class, this is a big deal. The Ministry of Education wants to do financial education for students. Here's a neat way for you to get into a school and do a fun and practical session for high school students. You can sign up online on the OGen site for this, and this is kind of like Law Day for solicitors, okay? Law Day activities are often litigation-based. Here's one that's for the solicitors. Make the offer every year, and happy to come out and do presentations on a whole bunch of different topics, and many of our topics are professionalism hours. Please contact Ray or I. We're happy to come out. Now, yesterday you had a bunch of information on technology, and there was kind of a discussion about, okay, I didn't really understand what blockchain was. So I'm going to make you the life of the next party. Everyone's talking about blockchain. Now you're going to truly understand it. So what is it? It's very, very complex, lots of computers and math involved, but at its core, it's really, really simple. Let me walk you through what it is and how it works. What do you need to start? Oops, more technical difficulties. That's supposed to be a little kind of stick person figure there. Pretend that's 3 stick people. You need at least 3 people. You need a group of people. More people is better. This isn't fun without stick people there. More people, the larger the group, the better. I'm going to explain that further on in the presentation, okay? Everyone has to mutually agree to be in that group, okay? And there's some common purpose to the group. And kind of the typical easy example, which I'm going to use, it's a money transaction system, funds transfer system, okay? Typically, the group members see everything that goes on in that group, okay? And it can be a private or public group. So that means it can be just the group members that see what's going on in the group, or it can be the whole world that can see what's going on in the group, but it's just the group members that are actively participating, okay? The identities of the members of the group can be anonymous, and that's the Bitcoin example. You have a gobbledygook name, no one knows who you are, it's untraceable, okay? Or the identities within the group can be made. So say some kind of blockchain transactional system where you're buying and selling goods on a blockchain tool, you would want to know who you were dealing with in that situation. Here's how it works. Let's take an example where it's a loan for 500 Bitcoin between two different people in our imaginary group of invisible stick people, okay? So the lender announces to the whole group, I want to give 500 bucks to the borrower, okay? That offer to make that loan is seen by everybody in the whole group, okay? The lender and everyone else all look at the balance in the, all of the members of the group look at the balance in the lender's bank account, okay? There isn't just one bank that has that bank balance. Everybody sees the bank balance of the lender, okay? If there's enough cash there, it's considered that the transaction is approved and the transaction will be completed, okay? Each person in the whole thing basically looks and says, boom. That's why it's called a distributed ledger, okay? There's not just one ledger. I have a bank account at BMO. There's not just one ledger there. It's a public ledger that everyone sees every transaction, okay? That's what's called distributed ledger technology, okay? The next transaction, some other loan between two other people in the group, it's announced, everyone looks at it. If the balance is sufficient, everyone says check, yes, that deal can go ahead, that transaction can go ahead, okay? And it keeps continuing and so on through the different transactions that are happening. Something special happens when that first ledger page gets full. Let me run you through what happens here. This involves the complicated computer math, okay? Remember back in high school when you send coded notes, you know, A equals 1, B equals 2, okay? That's kind of what's happening here. The contents, say there's 10 transactions on that ledger page, are run through a cryptographic code generator and translated into a bunch of gobbledygook text, okay? It's always the same answer for that given page of transactions, okay? You can run it through 100 times. You're always going to get that same string of code come out, and it only works one way. You can't take that code and run it through the hash and regenerate it backwards, okay? What happens here is that what you call it is the ledger page contents have been hashed. Effectively, that locks down that page. Why? Because if something on that page is changed and I run it through the code generator again, I get a different code, and that tells me that that page was changed. Somebody changed a number on that page. That's how you lock that page down. And that's something that you've probably heard referred to as proof of work, okay? And this is one way that blockchain systems work. There are a couple of other different ways as well, okay? The first person to run that through to calculate the hash amount announces it to the whole group, okay? Everyone in the group looks at that code, and if they verify the code, okay, the person who figured it out first gets some additional cash, nominal amount, dumped into their account. Okay, so that's called mining. It's new money created. So that's why everyone is trying to do this, because if you do enough of these transactions, you can make some money by being the first to approve a bunch of different transactions, okay? Everyone keeps that old full page, everyone starts a new page, and you've got a new distributed ledger happening for everyone, and the process continues so on, okay? Here's the one special wrinkle that brings it all together. The hash code of the one page, once it's calculated, is included in the calculation of the hash code for the next page. So at the top of that page is that hash code for the prior page, then the 10 different transactions, okay? That means you've got a link. So each hashed locked page is called a, and when you link all those blocks together, you have a, there you go. Okay, what if someone else gets a different hash? Okay, it's possible either by calculation error, unintentional mistake, or maybe they're trying to do some kind of fraud. What happens is the majority always wins. Remember I said the bigger the group, the better? The more people you have judging the transactions, the harder it is for an individual or a small group within the group to change the results, okay? The person who got the wrong answer must replace their answer with the right answer, or they're kind of put off in limbo. They can no longer participate and make further changes. So when you reconstruct the record, and remember, because it's distributed ledger there, because everybody can see it, everyone can go back and look at all the previous transactions. So you can see the different chains, okay? The longest chain is always the best one. And as long as the majority approved it, if you see a smaller chain that's an offshoot, that's a problem. So that's how you verify that that's the true and correct record when you go and look at the record, okay? How else can you use a blockchain? I personally think, yes, it has some applications in some circumstances, but it's not going to replace all of us tomorrow, and same for artificial intelligence. It has some application in law, and here are a couple of examples just to try and make this perhaps a little more practical. Consider a smart contract system where you interface online, you and the buyer and the seller and the financer interface online on the terms of a contract. So this would all be built that, price and amount and quantity and shipping and all of that. You and the buyer and the seller, everyone who's involved in the contract goes in, works, puts the information that they want into the contract, they agree, everyone else looks and verifies that. You now have a lockdown contract and kind of can follow on there. So that would be an example of a kind of a smart contract system. If you took that one step further, and Maersk, the big international global company that runs ships with all of the containers, they're building a blockchain system that will do complete transactions, shipping, buying, selling, trucking, loading on the boat, off the boat, truck, ship, delivery, for anyone and everyone that's involved in shipping goods around the world. So that's a whole kind of huge system there. You've seen articles on registry systems, okay? Does a registry system, would we build a blockchain registry system in Ontario? No, because we already have a perfectly good one. However, the suggestion is perhaps in an African country where there is no organized kind of system, that building some kind of blockchain-based registry system would be an excellent way to do it, because you can instantly create that record that's public to everyone to see, that's verifiable, and kind of very low technology support. Somebody with a smartphone can look up or find out details on a property. So it kind of would make sense there. There's some interesting issues with blockchain technology. I'm sure you remember seeing the article on the person who was running the blockchain thing who unexpectedly passed away, and $140 million is disappeared because he was the only one that had the password to operate the account. So, and it's a bit the Wild West now. Lots of money being made in blockchain, but if you're participating in a blockchain bank where it's only one person running it, you don't kind of have the regulatory authority of the bank and the structure and all of that there. Interesting, if something negative or improper got posted into a blockchain system, say child pornography, okay, it's almost impossible to go back in and remove that. So lots of interesting issues there. So there you go, blockchain 101. Lots of interesting happening at LawPRO. Great to give an update to everyone. Would be pleased to answer any questions now.
You got the mic, but you just mentioned something about. I'll just borrow the mic. John Sipos from Perth County. Just you mentioned the one scenario about a will challenge, and you just very quickly went through a protocol, and frankly, I missed it. If you could just remind us, please.
Sure. The rules of professional conduct and the LawPRO policy oblige you to report a claim to LawPRO anytime you realize you've made a mistake or a potential mistake, or an allegation of error is made, okay? If someone calls you up and says, I want to see the will, okay, presumably in that question, there's some kind of potential of an error. So that should oblige you to call us up and give a notice. The traditional question is, I want to see the file, I want to see the file notes. Okay? What we say to lawyers, don't produce your file notes without a court order. Come to us, talk to us, we will help you deal with it, we will deal with the person making the request. If they bring you in for a discovery to ask about it, if there is a need to file an affidavit in response, we will help you either by attending or by helping you prepare that affidavit there to hold your hand. And we find a lot of these, if we deal with them up front that way, it goes away. It doesn't end up in messy and more expensive litigation. And again, depending what happens, but in many circumstances, when we handle that particular situation, we consider that a repair, so it doesn't trigger a deductible, doesn't trigger a claim surcharge levy. Does that make sense? All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one. So this is the second time we've heard about blockchains. Is there any reason we have to know about blockchains as lawyers? Any risk issues there that you're trying to
It's out there at some point in some types of transactions that your clients may be involved with. There may be blockchain issues happening there. There may be blockchain tools that come to play in terms of helping, assisting lawyers in providing services to clients. There's a good number of lawyers now giving legal advice on blockchain and blockchain issues to clients and businesses, and from a regulation point of view, policy point of view. So that's why I mention it. There is, from last year, our top disruptions issue of LawPRO magazine, either online or there's some examples out on the table. There's more background on blockchain. There's a whole article on technology, in particular artificial intelligence, which is another example of, no, it's not going to replace all of you tomorrow, but artificial intelligence is already out there doing e-discovery and document review work, screening work, and other things like that. We'll probably see it move into other areas as well, because there's technology out there that can see, read, think, convert pictures, words, data better and faster than you can. Ultimately, what it may find should come to a lawyer for review and decision in many cases, but technology will change how we practice going forward, undoubtedly. So that's why we go over that. Anyone else? We're all hungry. It's time for lunch. Thank you.